Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone is keeping well as we enter in the busy season. We're in pretty much the middle of it at this point. Excited to have our friend Jacob back from Sezzle. And for those of you that were part of Maker Summit last year, you know that Jacob was an integral part in discussing really the benefits of utilizing a buy now, pay later service such as Sezzle, which is, we've been a partner with for a number of years at this point. And Jacob, good to have you back, man. Really good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a blast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And last year was an interesting success, with just under 3,000 attendees. I really felt like the discussion we had really hit home to many people, just because at the time, Sezzle as a service, while it was around for a number of years, had really seen kind of a heightened lift in utilization, just because, people really were really getting a grasp on, stretching their cash, really pacing out how they spend, taking advantage of, beneficial systems like yours, not only to help merchants, but also customers that are also buying products. And we're going to dive into that, in a little bit. But, beforehand, I really want to start with, the idea from the merchant's perspective. And for a lot of you that are listening right now, you're not just a customer, you're also a merchant selling your product online, of which can find a lot of great use in offering a system like Sezzle to your customers that may want to utilize the buy now, pay later on your websites. And I think kicking this off, like we always do, it's really getting an understanding of, what is a buy now, pay later? Who is Sezzle? And if you could just maybe cater it to just for the merchant's perspective, that'd be really great, because I want to really dive into that for a little bit.
Yeah, so when you hear the term buy now, pay later, it's kind of become all encompassing. So when I talk about buy now, pay later, I'm specifically talking about pay in 4. And if you're not familiar, that's 4 payments over 6 weeks, usually 0% interest to the customer. The buy now, pay later provider is then paying the merchant the lump sum of those transactions in full the next business day, and then they're assuming all of the risk. The other flavors of buy now, pay later out there kind of include, there's pay in 2, there's pay in full, or long-term installments, which operate much more akin to like a credit card. Monthly installments, interest-bearing usually. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for, but it kind of boils down to the basket sizes that you're selling. I like to say pay in 4 is good for about 1,000 and below. Anything 1,000 and up, you kind of want to start looking at a longer-term solution.
Yeah. No, and it's a good point that you bring up with regards to, basket size. And again, as while, we're selling a variety of different supplies that can, add up the basket value, a lot of our makers are selling finished goods. And so their customers may not be adding up the basket as significant as when you're buying a set of supplies to make your products. But with that being said, is it silly to ask, what's too low to offer buy now, pay later? Because I think that question may come up and say, well, if I'm selling something for, let's say, $30, is it weird for me to offer a buy now, pay later option for something at $30? And will customers really take advantage of that to help, complete the sale?
Yeah, great question. There's a very common misconception that buy now, pay later is only for higher ticket priced items. And the reason for that is the demographic that's using a solution like this is typically younger. Think 18 to 35-ish. Maybe it's a new family, money's tight. But historically, especially in the US, even looking at Canada now, when you look at the economy as a whole, budgets are tight, rent is high, mortgage rates are high, credit card debt is high. But the traditional credit financing space is not really built towards people that haven't built up their credit yet. And how can you build credit without having credit? Maybe you're lucky enough to have your parents co-sign you to a credit card, or you have a student loan that you're paying off, or an auto loan that you're paying off, that you're building credit that way. But where we come in is a lot of customers that have that lack of access to credit, or we call them credit invisible. Think new to country, that don't have a credit profile, they can't get approved for anything. That's not to say that they're bad customers or don't have the funds to make purchases. They're just not able to extend that. And so where we come in is we use, speaking to Sezzle specifically, I'm sure a lot of other buy now, pay laters operate very similarly. We look at alternative data to approve these shoppers. So we're able to approve people without credit scores and without credit history. So I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think there's a low end. From a merchant's perspective, if that customer is looking at a $50 purchase, for example, would you rather them not check out because they can't afford it, or offer them something that maybe costs a little bit more than credit card processing and secure that customer, get them into your ecosystem. And as they grow their wealth and go through their life, you still have that customer information. Maybe they do get that credit card, they spend more, they come back more often. There's really a couple facets that we look at when talking to merchants about if they should offer a buy now, pay later option. And it's really, one is of course conversions, acquiring that customer. Two is increasing your basket size. So typically we're seeing if someone is looking at a $30 purchase, if they see can add another $10 item for $2.50 every 2 weeks, they're going to do it. On the merchant side of that, not only are you increasing basket sizes, but maybe you're shipping out more product in one go. So you're saving on shipping costs because they're not coming back as frequently per se, on a monthly basis, but they're buying more in one go. And then the final piece that we've really seen an uptick on is customer acquisition. So a lot of the buy now, pay laters will market your brand or market your product on their marketplace. And we have customers coming back to look for where else they can use Sezzle in particular. And we do that for free. So whereas the average customer acquisition cost in e-commerce is what, like $68 nowadays? If you're only paying a 2% increase on processing costs and it's a $50 order, you're theoretically paying $1 to acquire that customer. So there's a couple different instances in why I would recommend not looking at buy now, pay later for those high ticket items, but go as low as you can because people are going to spend more if the option's available.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And that's a really thorough and clear explanation as to, why it would be beneficial as well from the merchant's perspective. And I think a lot of times, and you mentioned this, the misconception is that, utilizing a service like this for higher ticketed items, because typically you may not have as much liquid cash to kind of spend on a bigger item. But I'm thinking it's utilized way more on, the lower ticketed items because of the fact that, normally someone who's utilizing this type of service is in the younger demographic. But before we get into kind of why they're using that and why it would benefit them, I want to hone in on one thing that you mentioned, which is really the ability to kind of increase your customer acquisition costs and pair it with what you said originally, which was customers that are coming in potentially new to a country that may not have certain credit, may not have a credit card, still need to obviously buy certain things, why that's become beneficial. And do you feel that naturally as a merchant, if you are deciding to, whether you're starting a website or looking at ways to optimize your website to increase your customer acquisition, do you feel that a buy now, pay later application like Sezzle be one of the first areas you can look at to really improve that customer acquisition cost and that conversion rate? And if so, what are some of the methods you guys have seen from other merchants that have proven to be a success when they onboarded something new, such as a Sezzle application?
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're starting a business, it's getting your brand and your name in front of as many customers as possible, as quickly as you can, and as cheaply as possible, right? So of course you're running Facebook ads, maybe you're running Instagram ads, YouTube ads, flyers, emails, you name it. Sezzle is just another marketplace, or buy now, pay laters in general just have another marketplace so you can get that brand out there. And historically, like I said, it's typically free to do. There's no affiliate cuts. You're not paying to be in the marketplace. It's basically free promotion, and the only time you pay is if someone actually uses the option to check out. So when we're talking customer acquisition specifically, that's one side of the coin that a merchant can use buy now, pay later, is taking advantage of their free channels. The other half of it, and where we see a lot of success of those tools in particular, is if that customer finds you maybe not through our webpage. Seeing a buy now, pay later option on the homepage gets them to click into the product page. We call it our widget, but maybe if you've shopped online a lot, you'll see, a $100 product or $25 in 4 installments right below that on the product display page. That gets them to go through the flow to the checkout. They see it in checkout, it still breaks down the prices right there. So it's kind of making that customer aware throughout the entire flow that buy now, pay later is available. The other aspect, and I think I mentioned it last year, and we're still seeing the same thing, is instead of offering like a $10 off coupon or a 20% off coupon for abandoned carts, if you let the customer know that buy now, pay later is available, we've seen that bring people back. Then you're not taking a hit into your margins. So it's just as important that the merchant is advertising they have buy now, pay later to their current customer base as it is that you're taking advantage of the buy now, pay later's channels to their loyal shopper base as well.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something with regards to whether you're starting out a business or ultimately trying to grow it to the best of your ability. The traditional methods have always been, dump some money into ads and try to diversify where your brand is visible to a number of direct customers or potentially indirect customers that may utilize or purchase your products and or service. And I think what's critical is that something like a Sezzle, and I'll attest to this because we obviously utilize it, the cost of which you are spending is already confirming that the order has been placed. And so while a traditional method to spend money on, let's say, for example, an ad, you're not guaranteeing you're getting an order from that ad. Guarantee that that ad will be in circulation, and depending on your ad budget, will determine how often it's being visible and where it's being visible. But nonetheless, something like a buy now, pay later plays, two or more possible roles, which is helping customers out with, the cash management, if you will, on making sure that the order can go through and, provide a frequency of payments, to Jacob's point earlier, that is a lot more manageable than potentially spending it all up front. But number two, if you were to focus a lot of your efforts on, promoting the service on your site to existing and or new customers, the chances of them possibly spending more or even making the purchase and committing to it, knowing that it's an amortized payment model versus right up front, allows you to confirm that the money you're spending on offering this service is coming with a guaranteed sale because it's done after the fact. And so a lot of people really don't realize that aspect of it. And I think when you look at it from that purpose, I think Sezzle, as much as it is a payment processing tool via the widget, I think it's also should be considered part of your marketing budget and marketing strategy efforts, because it is by far a key contributor to really expanding your name and leveraging a name like Sezzle, who's built serious brand equity in whether it be the B2C space and now growing into the B2B space. So I think that's also a very good advantage as well. And again, speaking on behalf of my own experience, your core team at Sezzle works very closely with merchants on trying to strategize how to bring the brand forward, utilizing your own marketplace that you guys do for free, which I think is a great opportunity to possibly participate in a lot of the promotions you guys run annually that, depending on the product and or service you offer, may actually see a much higher return on effort, if you will, or return on investment than traditional methods would be, just given the saturation of how many customers are, how many companies are doing it at this point. So I do think that's an interesting point, and appreciate you kind of bringing this up. Is there a higher chance of customers that utilize Sezzle or any BNPL platform to attract new customers rather than having existing customers spend more? Like, what do you think that ratio may be, and is that a possibility of attracting new customers relative to just making existing customers spend more?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not a massive secret in the industry that, one side of the business is focused on acquiring new merchant partners, because these buy now, pay later options need to acquire new shoppers in some way. And of course, the most direct way to do that is to work with new merchant partners and tap into their market base. But then the other half of the coin is these buy now, pay later companies don't make any money unless someone uses their option at checkout to transact. And so it's in our best interest to promote brands and merchants that we're working with to our current customer base. And so what we've historically seen, generalizing across about the 45,000 merchants we work with, roughly 70% of the transactions you see with a buy now, pay later on your website are net new to the business.
Yep. No, and that's an interesting point, because again, I'm going to revert back to, I'm either starting a website or I've started it. I need ways to kind of grow it. There's undervalued ability to kind of leverage a name like Sezzle and realize that they don't make money until you make money. And so there's this cohesive partnership that has to work together. And both companies are actually working strategically to hit the same objective. So I think there's a lot of value in that, in attracting new customers. And like you said, it's not that it's a secret. There are a number of other BNPLs out there that offer a very similar service. But I would be cognizant of who you're working with. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of my own experience, only because you want to make sure that the partnership is a two-way street. Number one, you are putting in a lot of effort running your business, growing your business, and investing in optimizing it in so many ways. So part of that, as I mentioned earlier, is using a buy now, pay later application as effectively as another marketing employee or a contributor to your overall growth strategy. I feel like the provider of that buy now, pay later equally has to put in the same effort into helping your brand get out and grow as well. So I think vetting that supplier is extremely critical if you're at the early stages of trying to decide which one to go with. And then ultimately there is a financial aspect of it. So you also want to make sure, what am I going to be charged, when an order gets processed, and really just evaluating, do I have enough room, from a margin perspective to support this order while also paying for a processing fee from my buy now, pay later merchant, and being able to sustain that as you potentially grow, which we presume you will if you utilize it more and more. So things to really consider other than just the front end aspect of it is that there is some back end due diligence, if you will, that you would have to do. And while someone like a Sezzle is actually made it relatively easy for you to kind of onboard them into your back end, I would still take the time to ensure that if you were to reduce your price on your website, if you're offering different products that may not necessarily yield you the same margin, but those customers will utilize the buy now, pay later. Again, just once over on your financials to ensure that you can sustain it. Because the last thing you want to do is offer something that attracts a market that people are looking for, and then rescinding that because financially it may not be able to be supported. So a little bit of early on review before you jump into the excitement of it, I think, is extremely critical. I do think that it is a very cost-effective method to grow your business relative to the traditional methods that we can all get carried away with and continue to get into the euphoria of dumping more money out just because we feel that, the ecosystems outside of buy now, pay later, such as, the search engine ads and getting into other marketplaces could potentially yield us more. Sometimes it's not the case, and we have to kind of, reformat the way we approach our market. Jacob, kind of switching a little bit of gear here. So we're getting into the holiday season. We're midway, I would say, in terms of prepping and building and getting products out there. People are obviously naturally they're heightening their spending. A couple of things that I wanted to kind of ask you was how is a buy now, pay later going to help during this busy time of the year if you're a customer looking to shop around? What does that do to your wallet? What does that do to your ability to spend possibly a little bit more as you're amortizing the payments back? And how can the merchants really feed off that and really push that forward?
Yeah, I think I kind of want to relate this to doing your due diligence as a merchant before selecting a buy now, pay later option. It's a bit funky in the sense that, Sezzle in particular, we're a very shopper-oriented organization. You mentioned a lot of the buy now, pay later options out there are very similar to each other. And it's true. It's very simple to make 4 payments, 6 weeks, 0% interest. But when you really dive into it, if that customer is using a specific buy now, pay later option on your website and they have a poor experience, maybe it's not being able to get in touch with customer support or being able to delay payments or change payment methods without having to call somebody, that reflects poorly on your own business, even if they're using that service to check out, because it's something you're offering. You trusted this organization with your shopper. And if it's a great experience, they're going to correlate that to your brand rather than ours most of the time. And so when we're talking holiday season and heightened spending and this, that, and the other, I think working with an organization that has a great support team and great methods for shoppers to kind of extend those payments out is really important. The other aspect of that is, from the shopper perspective to during the heightened spending season, of course, we're seeing that bucket of customers that doesn't maybe have a credit card, and so they're looking for ways to extend that. But we are seeing a lot of customers that have, credit card debt. Credit card debt's at an all-time high, and they're using an option like Sezzle or other buy now, pay later options because they're offered 0% interest. They can still extend out their payments kind of on cycle with when they're paid and able to pay down that credit card debt. Holiday seasons never stop people from spending, even if they shouldn't necessarily be spending, because people like to buy each other things during the holiday season. That's what it's about. And so just being able to offer that from a customer standpoint and give them the breathing room to do that is ultimately kind of the goal. But making sure that that customer is not overspending is important, that they're not falling into that credit card or debt cycle, if you will, with some of the long-term options out there. And the flexibility that they need. That's all things that the buy now, pay later provider you're working with should handle for the customer on their behalf. But just making sure you're selecting an option that does that for your customers is ultimately important.
Yeah, no, valid point. And again, during the holiday season, this year may be a little different than last year as certain items have risen in cost. Clearly we're all living in the same world where there are similar economic challenges and challenges with respects to getting product in time or getting enough product. And, there's this natural rise and, with inflation kind of being toying with the idea of going up and back down and vice versa. It's been hard on a lot of people. And like you said, it doesn't really stop many people during this time of the year, just given the fact that it is the holidays and understandably, it's just a matter of applications such as a Sezzle can help with, taking away a lot of that burden, to make sure that you can cover some of that big cost over the course of a period of time, whether you have a credit card, whether you have credit card debt, or just feel like you don't want to get into the burden of incurring more debt or incurring any debt. This is a great opportunity to really manage that from that perspective. And on the topic of debt, and I remember we mentioned this earlier and I wanted to get to it, the demographic of customers that are using this, and this is from a merchant perspective in terms of our outreach, but the demographic that is using this type of solution is on, you said 18 to 35, I believe, right? Typically, majority of the younger end of that demographic hasn't even gotten a credit card yet, nor are they even credit worthy because they haven't really established a level of credit approval, if you will, to obtain a credit card or any form of credit. Walk us through how this does not stop someone from shopping, but more importantly, can this also offer ways to gain credit for the shopper to potentially use, along their journey as they will either want to start a business and get a level of credit, or possibly want to look at shopping more and utilize a credit card. So walk us through how that could potentially benefit them.
Yeah, so at the very basic level, because we're not using credit scores and we're using alternative data to approve these shoppers, when we're talking smaller basket sizes, that $1,000 and below, we can approve up to 95% of shoppers. One is because we're not taking on a load of risk. Like when you look at our balance sheet, we're not talking multiple thousands of dollars or buying sectionals or sofas or televisions. So it's a lot less risky for Sezzle as an organization to approve that shopper. And then the way that a lot of these buy now, pay laters work is as that shopper continues to use those options over and over and over again and establish their own, internal history with the vendor, if you will, they're given higher limits, they're given additional benefits, and they're coming back more often. So one, they're extending their purchasing power because they're able to spend more over a longer period of time. Something that's unique to us from a pay in 4 perspective, or unique to Sezzle in a pay in 4 perspective, is that a customer can actually opt in to build their credit with Sezzle. And so then we'll go and when they make a purchase with us, whether they pay it off on time or not, because we have to report both, we can actually report those to the credit bureaus on behalf of the customer if it's opted in. That's a free tool that we have. And so we're able to help them build their credit by submitting their payment with us to those credit bureaus. They can build their credit. And again, you've acquired that customer as a merchant. They're in your ecosystem. They go through life. We're on our side building up their credit. We work with a couple of providers, important to us as well. Make sure it's a good experience to send them to appropriate credit cards maybe they can get approved for. But even if it's not someone we've sent them, they can go and get that credit card. They're still in your ecosystem as a merchant. They come back, they spend more often. And that customer has a really great experience with us building up their credit because if you go and let me back it up. When you're evaluating a tool to use, go and look at reviews on the App Store, the Google Play Store, Trustpilot, and you'll see loads of different reviews. A lot of them, Sezzle in particular, and of course I'm a little bit biased here, is people talking about how we help them build up their credit when nobody else would. So it's a very low risk way for that customer to do that. And as a merchant, you're giving them the tools to do that. And we're on our side. It's very important to us to keep them happy and coming back more often. I mean, we're seeing our top 10% of our customers using us 70 times per year. So it's a lot less for those one-off purchases, even around the holiday season, and more cyclical and people using buy now, pay later as a preferred payment type. And so if you're giving them tools, you know, even again, a little bit backwards for us, if we give them enough tools to get out of using us, they're not going to use us anymore, but they like the benefits they're getting otherwise, and it's still 0% interest. So sure, you might have a credit card you get points on. Maybe you only use it for large purchases. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And I'll be completely honest with you, I had no idea you guys offered that service on behalf of someone to kind of submit in when payments are made. And I think that highlights such an important point, because, you know, should you be, you know, part of the youngest part of the demographic where you're not able to obtain a credit card and it might take you a little bit longer, this definitely can help you with that. And obviously, as you know, Jacob had mentioned, the service is available for free. So why wouldn't you take that as an option, just given the fact that it could help you down the road as you kind of grow? And then even from a merchant perspective, again, being able to utilize this as part of your marketing strategy, depending on the demographic you are catering to, this might be a very effective way as an outreach strategy, you know, to really hone someone in and feel comfortable to shop within your store, knowing that there are other, you know, advantages to them as a buyer that you can support and really maintain that level of loyalty. You know, as part of the stat that Jacob mentioned, you know, I believe you said 10% of your customers shop 70 times within the year. And I think, you know, that returning rate from a Sezzle perspective, you know, could be easily achieved from your perspective, you know, assuming you may be, let's say, in a saturated market. Having a higher returning customer rate is critical for your business. And so without having to necessarily always offer discounts or things of which that may hurt your bottom line, there are other value added, you know, propositions you can go to the market with that can continue to bring customers back in, you know, while achieving, you know, the highest return possible for yourself as a business to reinvest into other value added items for your customers. So super helpful. And dude, you've been extremely helpful. You always have. I love these chats. These are great. And, you know, while we can talk for hours about Sezzle and what it offers, I think we hone in on some of the more critical aspects that we're noticing, especially this year versus last year. And I'm glad that, you know, a couple of new things have uncovered in the sense that there are real ways to utilize this as part of your outreach strategy. Number one, to kind of help your business grow as a merchant. And number two, hey, if you're a consumer and you're really having a tough time getting a credit card or feeling the pinch on having to spend so much money up front, you know, the buy now, pay later service has been around for a few years now, if not longer. But really being able to, I guess, qualify is probably the best word I could think of at this point as to who you want to use as a buyer, as a customer, maybe something you could do to provide your own due diligence and see what is offered in that process. Because while it doesn't cost you anything, there's this reciprocity that, you know, you want to feel comfortable working with your merchant and the tools that they provide you. So again, man, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. We'll post your link so that everybody has an opportunity to kind of click in and learn more. Obviously, if you're shopping on Village Craft and Candle, you can always find Sezzle as an option when you check out. And if there are any questions, you can always ask, you know, one of our customer service agents that can help you out with anything related to Sezzle. And any of the resources at Sezzle will be more than happy to help you out as well and provide links to that as well. Really, really appreciate you. Thanks for coming out, and enjoy the rest of the summit. And you awesome, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And it's really great what you do for your partners and your customers and the ecosystem you've built around to provide tools to help everybody else grow their business. It's really cool what you guys are doing. So we really appreciate being a partner.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Thanks so much.
Thanks.